So yeah, hello. As I was introduced, my name is Zilvinas. I work at CLOUDxAI. I'm Director of Engineering here. And today I am going to do a talk about one of the pain points we solve for our company. And it's also a big pain point for our company CFO. It's a story how we kind of went from just spending 50K in 1 month to 100K on our Cloud, Anthropic, OpenAI, and like other agentic AI oriented builds. There's an interesting sequence to the previous speaker because it also talked about serverless APIs. So this kind of touches this topic a bit more in the depth from the business perspective and the pain points you will have once you start using that as well. And yeah, not to waste your time too much, let's move to the next slide. So the problem that we had and we fixed for ourselves is universal, meaning every engineering organization that is adopting agentic AI is either having this problem now or we are about to have this problem in the near future. And why is that? Because typically engineering companies start small on agentic AI. You onboard few people, we start using Cloud Code, we start using OpenAI Codex or some other SaaS-based system where you can generate code. Everything looks fine at that stage, but then suddenly the hype or like the usefulness of it starts picking up in the company, and multiple of your teams want to use it more and more. So what it means, success spreads, and every team member now wants AI-assisted development tooling in their toolchain. The next step is like the bill starts exploding, and suddenly instead of like spending 50K or spending 100K or like 200K, depending on the size of your company, the point is that the problem is applicable for any type of the company because the growth of the bill is exponential, so it will be relative to what you're paying now in your company. If this is relating to you, so you're not alone, there is lots of documented industry-wide case studies on that. So a few of these case studies confirm that monthly cost of AI-assisted engineering tooling at current state is like around 85K per month. This is the research of last year. So this year, I'm quite sure it's going to be more than double than that. Growth of usage of API reasoning is like 300 times X to what it used to be previously. And yeah, for enterprise companies and like big engineering companies, ours is like 150, and like there are definitely companies which are bigger than that. That 85K bill is probably not 85K, it's like way more than that. And, yeah, doing enterprise agentic development at scale becomes even of a bigger burden. So our numbers for us was a wake-up call. So we saw that like in January, our Anthropic bill went from 50K to 100K. It included Anthropic API usage, CLOUDxAI usage, OpenAI usage as well. I just like mentioning Anthropic here. And as I mentioned, we are not even a very big engineering organization, just 150 engineers in the whole org. Where does this money go? So it goes to Cloud Code licenses, to OpenAI licenses, to API calls for feature development, to using agentic workflows where, like, for example, you're debugging your infrastructure, seeing what's happening with your application, trying to parse the logs and see what needs to be fixed for application to come back online. Knowledge work, so accounting, HR work, like all this other knowledge stuff as well, and writing documents and sometimes summarizing documentation because some of your colleagues are like already generating documents that are too long and no one wants to read them at this point, and you just end up fighting AI with AI, meaning one guy sends you generate a doc with AI, you use AI to kind of have a quick summary of that, and this is like another problem which we will not cover here, but hopefully you have encountered in your work. The irony in that is like we are cost optimization and automation platform, and we didn't even see it coming for ourselves. So what used to be a $50 bill per seat became for 600 to 700. This year we're looking at the range of like one seat for engineer for AI coding costing from 600 to 2000. And yeah, then the reality hit us when during one of the Anthropic UI bugs, it was not reporting to us the average that we were spending during that period of time. And when the bug was fixed, we saw extra 50K on our cloud spendings for AI only, not just like for infrastructure. So meaning for something we are experimenting and trying to adopt. So this is the adoption curves nobody plans for. And as you see, typically people start with like 15K, we go to like 25, and like for us it was a bit more aggressive than that, but this is like the typical workflow how it looks like. For us it was like from 50K to 100K in like 1 month, so this like the whole gap didn't even exist. It hit us by surprise. And as I mentioned previously, it's like from 500 to 2,000 a month on the bill. The problem is that is you can say like, should I just slow down adoption? Should I just like stop using agentic AI so much in order to reduce this extra overhead? But then the issue will be that you as a company, as a startup, as an enterprise, you will end up losing your competitive advantage because everyone does this now. If you're the only company who is not adopting that, companies which you are competing against will just pass through you, and you will not even see them coming for that. Yep. So as adoption accelerates, as I mentioned, the price goes up, and as one of the CTOs of high growth SaaS startup for A16Z survey said, nearly 90% of our code is now AI generated through Cursor, Cloud Code, and similar it is for ours, and it comes with lots of interesting consequences, as I mentioned previously. One of them being like, as every new SaaS provider releases these foundational models like Codex or Opus, you will see the price increasing. Even if the price is not increasing, they will add some additional node. We will call it fast mode, and then they will bill extra you for that. They will add some PR review bot, and then you will pay like $30 per review. So for them, it's like a game to fight where we want to finally reach the revenue. For us, it's a game to fight where eventually we will not have enough money to pay to use these agentic tools on our workflows. So what we did for ourselves, and this is like not some made up story, we actually built ourselves a tool, or how to say, a product, and we did an experiment of like 45 engineers for 10 days. And it was not just engineering, it was like customer success org, product organization as well. So it was like a mixed bag of different people from different disciplines. It took like 10 days, and the goal of that was people should come up with different ideas that would be using our solution. And our solution, I will tell you in a second what it did. And the goal of that was to outsource some of the things which I mentioned in the previous slide, like using Opus for everything, to outsource some of these things to open source models like QN or Minimax for like coding use cases. In this experiment, we took a hybrid approach where instead of switching everything to open source, we said like, let's first try by using like Opus and Codex for planning and QN and Minimax for execution. So it's like a little bit less painful for people to have the full experience, which consequence of that was around 7 billion input tokens generated. And I am not even mentioning output tokens because it's a rounding error in that scale. And in addition to that, it was 94K of API calls to our AI gateway, which we also built in order to make sure we can track if people are using the Opus or something else for planning, what we are using for execution. So if you are organization adopting AI, probably you're either already using AI gateway or building one for yourself. That math kind of broke us, and as I mentioned previously, Iron is us being a company which have been very good at cost optimizing customer infrastructures. After that experiment, which I mentioned took like 10 days, just for these 10 days, we would have paid like 34K if we would have used Opus for every single query that we did. But because in Sonnet it would have been like 20K, but it's still quite a big amount of money for a 10-day experiment on 45 people and relatively small organization. What we actually spent was like 5K of dollars for that 10 days, and this is like derived out of H100 GPU cost for running the full month. So if you can see this number, like 8x H100 GPUs for full month costs like 16K. So what it means, we spent 5K, and we have like enough money left to just use it for the rest of the month, and we still wouldn't have spent what you would have spent if you used either Sonnet or Opus. So it's a big difference from our perspective. The napkin math to look at would be like, as I mentioned, Anthropic API would have costed us like 34K just for input tokens only. Full month of H8X H100 would have costed us 16K. And what would have also would have cost double the bill easily, sending data to third party. In our solution, the data stayed on our VPC, meaning like the code you're using for generating, it's not being sent somewhere out there to USA, or like some other countries might be relevant for people living here, I guess. You want to keep your data and your code at least in your region, not to say even in your own VPC. So again, to reiterate, what we built was a serverless model APIs, and it was not just like doing some inference and nothing else. The goal was for us to cover our own problem, which was trying to increase adoption within the company for generating code more, giving people like way more leverage to run bigger experiments. And you know what happens if you run big code generation experiments in Cloud or OpenAI. Suddenly, if uncontrolled, you can find in the morning like 10K, 20K build just from single user. I have been there myself. It was not 10K, but 5K after leaving Claude or Codex by dangerously allow changing things in the background. I generated a plan, I generated a project. It ended up creating application which was useless, but it costed me at least 5K. In addition to that, we added AI Gateway because that was needed for us to unify the central communication layer between different providers. So when you're switching between OpenAI, Anthropic, Gemini, self-hosted models, CastAI serverless models, you kind of need one point where you can track everything, so you don't need to go looking to different SaaS providers and even like calculate open source model spending separately. VPC deployment implies that if you have H100, H200, B200 GPUs underutilized sitting in your organization, what it means, we can make use of them for you, where we would allow them to be consumed by your Cursor, JetBrains, or like any other kind of application that you're using for engineering, even the common line ones like OpenCode, CloudCode, because CloudCode also allows like overriding what models you are using behind the scenes. So you actually don't need to change the user experience you as an engineer are used to. You can use the same user experience and use open source models and mix and match between that. So that's kind of a hybrid approach we are taking even still. In addition to that, for cost visibility, where it helps because you track API keys, you know how much every team is spending, you know where these dollars are going, and you can actually verify. Because if suddenly you wake up and find that there is one API key in the company that's only using Opus all the time is extended thinking, so maybe that person just needs like better training on how to use AI instead of like spending all of the money on trying to brute force their way into developing solution on the most expensive model they could find in internet. And it doesn't matter for them because it's potentially company money, and not every single employee in the company usually has the same skin in the game when it comes to saving resources. So the output of that and how to use it for us and our own team was like, once you start with this product, you are able to get an API up and running in less than 5 minutes. You can either choose approach, which I mentioned, where you can bring your own GPU to us and we will help you set it up automatically. We will make sure the GPU is healthy. If GPU malfunctions, we will help to move the workloads to another GPU, and workload being a model, it's not an easy task to just like reschedule it, reset up it, and like, yeah, all of that. The way we are deploying it is OpenAI compatible. This is like why it allows for you as an engineer to use like any tooling that you want. There are multiple ways how we handle it and how we plan to sell it. So paper token based on the infrastructure when you use our service, and like when using open source models deployed on our GPUs, it's still like 6 times more less expensive. And the irony in that is the GPU price, once we have it, it will never change, unlike these models of foundational models that are being released. And as I mentioned, you can use your own GPUs, meaning H100s, H200s, whatever you get, we can connect them as long as we can fit that model. How it looks in practice. So this is like a screenshot from our console for this hackathon. Like this was not available during the time. We mostly use, as I mentioned, hybrid approach of Q and Coder Next. Now we also have like GLM running. So GLM, as some of you may know, in terms of performance by benchmarks, is quite similar to Opus and Codex. And so far, out of experimenting, we had quite a good experience. So we're going to be adding that to the toolchain as well. There's also a way to completely isolate that model by deploying it on your infrastructure, not via serverless, but completely disconnected way. It goes back to the similar thing that was mentioned during last presentation, that we allow auto-scaling, downscaling of these LLMs, putting them on a hibernation and like making sure that you don't need to care about this infrastructure. In practice, this is like another example of how we are using it from our open code. So open code, cloud code, whatever you're using, you can just like adopt it. You can set the CastAI model that you want to use, or by just configuring CastAI URL for this API. This is the only thing you really need to switch in your dev environment or your coding editor in order to use this. Not sure how many are familiar with this framework called Get Shit Done. It's like an agentic building planning framework. So what it does, like for every different task that you want for your agent to execute, you can set what is the best model to handle it. This is just example configuration we preset for you. So you don't need to configure it yourself. So for planning, you want to use GLM because it's a big, good reasoning model. For execution tasks, debugging, QN is kind of good enough, and you don't need to worry about it too much. In addition to mentioning that like you have all the coding tools supported, like it's not enough because you also need this visibility, what model you used, how many times you used, and yeah, API calls, input output tokens, guardrails, other types of observability, and this is just like one piece of the puzzle. Just to reiterate, if you're using open code, you can configure it via previously mentioned API path and it will work. Cloud code will work as well. OpenAI Codex would also be covered. So it is really just a drop-in replacement. And again, as I mentioned, you can use your own GPUs, or you can use like our serverless GPUs. It would work just fine, and you would be able to switch. You could even like start with our SaaS and like move to something that is your own VPC easily. And this experiment showed us that we should experiment, validate, and then own. The idea is like we experiment with several model APIs. There was no infrastructure, so it was easy to onboard the 45 engineers in no time. We validated it based on the real use cases by building new products and new product features. And yeah, the output for us was that for some of it, we really need to own. For some of it, we can still be taking hybrid approach where where it allows us to have more fixed AI agentic coding pricing. It's not just us, and we have like a customers probably even in this hall. The company is named Island Digital. They moved their from SageMaker inference to self-hosted BGE model on GKE with CastAI. It was like a no-brainer for them. We manage the full life cycle. We make sure that model is online. We make sure that model is like hibernated and no logging required. We are doing auto-scaling for that if the inference endpoints are hit by more traffic. So everything just works out of the box. Like the experience you would be getting with these expensive SaaS providers, you're getting on us by just making sure that we take your infrastructure and we provide you serverless experience while still keeping the data and everything in your own VPC. Some of you might object and say, but Claude and GPT is better. Well, it is for some of the tasks, but most of the tasks don't really need best-in-class foundation model. If you're writing unit tests, you don't really need Opus, you don't really need Codex. You can just use some open source model, and switch between them seamlessly via AI gateway. So you can keep the best tools and fix the economics, as we say. So the real choice you would be making when you're thinking between just using SaaS providers or deploying models yourself via CastAI would be either you keep renting, you see cost scaling with your usage, you see no control over your pricing changes. The new model will be released, the price will be bigger, and you will have a choice either like not using it at all or paying an extra price, and usually you're just forced into the new pricing model. Vendor lock-in leaves you deep and sour over time. The more you use Claude, the more tooling you will build around it, and the harder it will be to leave that ecosystem where the budget is unpredictable. The way we think of it, you should rather start owning it, where you have a fixed GPU price, you pay it on monthly basis. If you buy H200, you can fit like a good enough model like GLM, which is quite a good foundational model. You will have full control over your stack. Your code will never leave your VPC. Your financial customer data will never leave your VPC. You will have model flexibility and no lock-in. So it will be predictable and easily optimizable budget from your perspective, because you will not be hit by surprise the next month when the billing data comes that you spent like 3 times more than the previous month. So the real takeaway from this talk, I hope for you, is you should stop renting AI. You should start owning it. Maybe not all at once, but partially is what we would usually suggest. And we are here to help you do that. Yeah, that's it. if you have any questions, I guess I can answer them.
Yeah, we can take one if anyone is having any. We'll wait for 30 seconds if anyone is interested. Okay, yeah.
Hi, Zilvinas. I am Kamal. I work for a software services company here. You mentioned per developer it is going up to like $500 to $700 per month earlier in one of the earlier slides. I'm just curious how, because if we sign up for, let's say, a Cloud Code Teams plan, a premium seat is also $100 per month. So where is the cost going up to like $500 to $700 per month?
So it's a really good question because typically if you sign up for a seat, like on a Team Pro plan, you would have like a fixed price and that's what you would spend, but then you will be completely limited on how much agentic coding you can do. Eventually you will hit rate limits. So it's, again, depending on which part of the journey is your company at, you might not be hitting the rate limits, but in our case, we have like a big monorepo with like hundreds of services. And when you're doing changes across them, like suddenly input tokens are getting consumed faster than you want. And you typically don't hit these limits early in the journey. You start noticing them later. At first, we will come out as something that stops the whole workflow for your engineer. In our case, we decided to kind of, let's observe the costs, see how much effectiveness we get out of engineers. And that's where this like range of from 500 to 2000 comes, because we now have enterprise plan. It's like, it's only constrained on the pricing on the whole account level. And we have certain amount of overages that we allow. So basically, it's not set per seat. We can limit per seat, but when the issue will be the person will start implementing feature and they will need to stop in the middle and going from coding something in agent being cut in between. I'm not sure if anyone wants to work on that code afterwards.
Cool. Thanks for the clarification.
Any other questions?
One more question, will this be supported in the IDE?
Sorry, can you?
Will this be supported in the IDE level? Right now, this will be coding, right?
Yeah.
Will be should be done completely on the terminal level, right?
Yeah. It's supported on the
it can be done in the IDE level.
Yeah.
It can be done in the IDE level, like Visual Studio Code or something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in Visual Studio Code, what you would be doing, you would be just registering model. Let me check. Yeah, you would be giving this API endpoint, and because it's like using this open source OpenAI specification, so every model you have registered at CastAI will become available to your tooling because there is specification how these models are exposed. All of these Visual Studio Code, JetBrains, all of these editors support it out of the box, so you will see every single model appearing in the list, even the one which you registered like as a SaaS via gateway.
Okay, got it. One more quick question, when it comes for an enterprise level, right? The companies, you showed some kind of modules, right? Module that should be whitelisted actually. One point is like, what config files which you have showed, right? For debugging, you can use the different model, something, right? See what happens in the enterprises, right? The module which the wrapper which you are using, right? That module should be securely whitelisted kind of thing. Whether that can be done, like how the data will be flowing back and forth, those things.
So meaning like if you ask a model enterprise related question, what
this config which you are showing, right?
Yeah.
This config, right? It's just a config, but backend you will be using some kind of wrapper, correct?
Yeah, but this wrapper is like in your local machine, meaning because this framework is it's open source framework.
Okay.
So we are just providing automatic configuration for it, but you can override it, you can decline it, you cannot use
just
it at
like
all.
skills, just
Yeah.
like in skills.
It's just like a set of skills which you can like completely omit, replace with your own, and they're running locally, meaning like you can scan them, you can see what's configured, you can like discard it, and so that's the fun part because like we are not saying that we are controlling it via SaaS. No, we are saying like you have it locally, whatever you will configure locally, we will respect.